So today we'll just go with another very interesting topic which is about synapse. Quite interesting, quite easy, and I hope you love it. So let's see, first thing when comes what is synapse. Synapse is simply kind of junction which is for the communication between one to another cell. It's like which control communication between a neuron to another cell. That's basically called as synapse. In easy word, we just simply say difference, not difference, but the space between two neurons called as synapse. And yes, that's the easy definition. You should never forget this definition. As if anyone asks you what is synapse is simply space between two neurons. That's called a synapse. But there's one more thing. It's like when we just make a structure. So when it comes about the structure, so if this is a head, like the first one part which simply have dendrites, and this is structure. We have discussed the neuron structure in very detail. If this is the one structure, so here this space of the ending one with the starting of another, here's the another starting. So this space between two neurons, that's called as synapse basically. So yes, I hope it will be clear. Then comes, we have so many structure, different types. What will exactly happen in this structure? Basically, when comes the structure of synapse, here these are the dendrites. Here that's called as axon. Basically, here we have nucleus and the entire body called as cell body or carrion. Here we have kind of structure which is myelin sheet. So myelin sheet is present over here. So when calcium enter, what will exactly happen? From here calcium will enter and go towards this axon. Here we'll see they will do such processes that, I mean, when they come over these ending, they release kind of chemical. This chemical released outside, that chemical here basically called as neurotransmitter. That's basically called as neurotransmitter. So synapse simply when pre-sympathetic membrane plus post-sympathetic membrane combine, they form a structure which is simply called as synapse. And simply when neurotransmitter and chemical is released here, when there's myelin sheet, at the time their production and their flow becomes slow. Why? Just because wherever myelin sheet are present, they will not do such work, and the remaining part, that's basically called as node of Ranvier. So at that time they really release a good amount of neurons, a good amount of chemicals. So I hope it will be clear. Then comes types of synapse. Basically we have two types, electrical, and we have second one which is chemical. Electrical and chemical. So in electrical, what happens, these both types, electrical and chemical. In chemical we discuss the neurotransmitter would be this all. Here's the ending of the first one. Here chemical would be released. This chemical basically called as neurotransmitter, as mentioned. Here comes the starting of another axon. So this is basically whenever chemical is released, this means that's called as chemical synapse. That's called as chemical synapse, hopefully. And whenever electrical synapse, this mean kind of electrical signals have been provided, that's called as electrical synapse. So I hope it will be clear here. Where is this kind of electrical synapse? This mean in electrical we have this structure, so they will have a structure like this one. This structure is basically called as gap junction. So gap junction is present between gap junction. So this means if here's the structure one axon, so from here sodium is going, so it will flow out through these gap junction, then it will reach to the second one. So yes, these are the types. Now let's see what's written in a book. We'll understand more nicely. So let me add picture again. So here comes what is synapse. Synapse is simply a junction which control communication between a neuron and another cell. Synapse is found between two neurons, between sensory receptor and sensory neuron, between motor neuron and the muscle cells, control between neurons and gland cells. So I hope it will be clear. As I mentioned, they are simply present between this is structure like the two neurons, and sometimes not sometimes but they are sensory neurons and sensory receptors. These are present in between them. They are also present between motor neurons and the muscle cells. So I hope it will be clear. Then structure of synapse. When it comes to structure of synapse, as I mentioned, it's a big structure with the ending of the first and the starting of the second one, and the space between they both, that's basically called as a synapse. So a structure which means the neuron whose axon transmit action potential to the synapse, which is transmitted to pre-sympathetic cell, and the cell receiving the signal to the other side of the synapse is called as post-sympathetic cell. This is called as gap junction, gap called synapse cleft between them. So what is exactly synapse cleft, I did not mention. So let's see what will be there. If this the structure of the first one, here this endings of these wait, if this is the structure here, these endings basically called as what, these are the, this is the pre-sympathetic membrane. This is called as pre-sympathetic membrane, and the space between this pre-sympathetic and the receptor for the second one, if this is the second one, so here receptor would be present. These receptor, the difference between them is called as synaptic cleft. And as mentioned, I mentioned one more point. What was that? The synapse, which is equal to what? This is pre-sympathetic membrane. Post-sympathetic membrane, simply the membrane of the second one where receptors are present, and pre is the first one. So pre-sympathetic membrane plus post-sympathetic membrane. That's basically called as a synapse. So yes, then comes the diagram. What is this? Yes, here done. Mechanical of sympathetic transition, it's simply movement of impulse across the synapse called as the sympathetic transmission. So this means the movement where impulse are generated between the in between the synapse, that's called as sympathetic synaptic transmission. In animals, two basic types of synapses are present: electrical and chemical. Electrical is what? Electrical, which involve direct cytoplasmic connections. This means directly cytoplasm is connected and formed a gap junction. As I mentioned, they would be between parasympathetic neuron and the post-sympathetic neuron. They make it possible impulse transmit from a strength electrical synapse in the central nervous system, and these all things. Electrical is synapse common in invertebrates nervous system but less in vertebrates. So yes, here comes the chemical. What is this? The vast majority of synapse in vertebrates, there is a basically chemical synapse, which is key to understand the function of electrical synapse. To the end of the pre-sympathetic axon is swollen and control nervous sympathetic, that each packet will form a structure that will be called as chemical. So I hope it will be clear. Here comes the diagram. We have pre-sympathetic membrane, here we have sympathetic and the bulb like structure, sympathetic cleft, the eye hair membrane, we have post-sympathetic membrane, these all structures. We have gate channels, which we discussed. The most one which is used here called as voltage gate channel. What will happen whenever voltage, it will only open when there is a voltage, where is a change provided. The middle one here, like the liquid substance present in all the structure called as cytoplasm. And neurotransmitter, which is simply the chemical you can see releasing out. We have ligand gate channel. Whenever you see word gate is simply enclosing, so ligand gate channel, which are simply when special chemical would be present, when special chemical would be present, at that time they'll open. So here chemical is releasing, which is neurotransmitter, so that's why they are showing an opening. So yes, that is all about the synapse types, which were two: chemical and electrical, then the structure, the keywords, the main function, structure, what was synapse. Synapse was basically space between two neurons, structure, mechanism, and all types. I hope it will be clear. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.